Hello, my wonderful friends at Wisdom of the Ages. I'm here today with news that's going to change everything we know about detecting Alzheimer's disease. And I mean everything. For decades, if you or your doctor suspected Alzheimer's, you faced a scary journey of expensive brain scans, painful spinal taps, or just waiting and wondering. But not anymore. The FDA just approved the very first blood test for Alzheimer's disease. Think about that for a moment. A simple blood test, just like the one you get to check your cholesterol, can now help detect the signs of Alzheimer's years before symptoms get severe. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly what this means for you, your family, and the 7 million Americans currently living with Alzheimer's. We'll talk about how it works, and I promise to explain it in terms that make perfect sense, when you might need it, and why doctors are calling this a revolutionary breakthrough. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's dive into what might be the most important medical news for seniors in 2025. Let me start with the big picture. On May 16th, 2025, the FDA gave the green light to the first blood test that can help diagnose Alzheimer's disease. The test is called Lumipulse, and it's made by a company called Fujirebio. Now, you might be thinking, haven't we had blood tests for other things for years? And you're absolutely right. We test blood for diabetes, heart disease, cholesterol, all sorts of conditions. But Alzheimer's has always been different. It's been like trying to see inside a lock safe without the combination. Think of your brain like a house, and Alzheimer's disease is like having unwanted visitors. Specifically, sticky plaques may have a protein called amyloid, moving in and causing damage. Until now, the only way to see if these unwanted visitors had moved and was either to get an expensive PET scan. Think of it like taking aerial photographs of your house from a helicopter. It works, but it's costly and not everyone can access it. Get a spinal tap. Imagine having to drill a small hole in your house's foundation to check what's happening inside. It's invasive, and most people want to avoid it. Or just wait until the damage became so obvious that you could see it from the street. But this new blood test? It's like having a smart doorbell camera that can detect these unwanted visitors early, just by checking what's in your bloodstream. No helicopters, no drilling, just a simple blood draw that takes about the same time as checking your blood pressure. Now, let me explain how this blood test actually works. Using comparison, that'll make perfect sense. You know how when you're cooking dinner, the smell travels from your kitchen throughout your house? Even if someone can't see what you're making, they can smell the garlic, the onions, the roast beef, and make a pretty good guess about what's for dinner. Well, your brain works similarly. When those sticky amyloid plaques start forming in your brain, those unwanted visitors I mentioned, they don't just stay put. They release tiny pieces of protein into your bloodstream, kind of like how cooking releases aromas into the air. This blood test looks for two specific aromas, two proteins called p-tau217 and beta-amyloid 1 to 42. When the test finds the right ratio of these proteins in your blood, it's like a detective saying, "Aha! I can smell that distinctive combination of garlic and oregano. Someone's definitely making Italian food in there." Except instead of Italian food, the test is detecting the smell of amyloid plaques forming in your brain. The really clever part? The test doesn't just say yes or no. It gives your doctor a score, kind of like a weather forecast. If your score is high, there's more than a 90% chance you have these amyloid plaques. If it's low, you almost certainly don't. And if you're in the middle, well, that's when your doctor might recommend additional tests to get a clearer picture. It's like the difference between a weather app saying, "It's definitely going to rain" versus "There's a 40% chance of rain, so maybe bring an umbrella just in case." Now, you might be wondering, why is everyone so excited about this? We already had ways to detect Alzheimer's, didn't we? Well, yes and no. Let me paint you a picture of what diagnosis looked like before this breakthrough. Imagine you're having trouble remembering things, and you're worried it might be more than just normal aging. You go to your family doctor. Let's call him Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith does his best, but here's a sobering fact. Primary care doctors only correctly diagnose Alzheimer's about 60% of the time. That's like flipping a coin that's slightly weighted in your favor. If Dr. Smith suspects Alzheimer's, he'd need to refer you to a specialist. That specialist might recommend a PET scan, which can cost $3,000 to $5,000 and often isn't covered by Medicare. Plus, depending on where you live, you might have to travel hours to find a facility that offers these scans. Or they might suggest a spinal tap, formerly called a lumbar puncture. Now, I don't want to scare anyone, but this involves inserting a needle into your spine to draw fluid. It's not just uncomfortable. Many people are understandably hesitant about the procedure. And here's the real kicker. By the time most people get a definitive diagnosis through these traditional methods, the disease has often progressed significantly. It's like trying to catch a house fire after the flames have already reached the second floor. But with this new blood test, your family doctor can order it right in their office. No travel, no expensive equipment, non-invasive procedures, just a simple blood draw. And within days, both you and your doctor have valuable information to guide your next steps. Dr. Howard Filler from the Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation put it perfectly. He said this is like being able to diagnose Alzheimer's the same way we diagnose high cholesterol. Can you imagine the peace of mind that brings? Here's where this gets really exciting, and it ties into something we know is crucial for managing any health condition: catching it early. Think about it this way. If you had a small leak in your roof, would you rather fix it when it's just a few drops hitting a bucket, or would you rather wait until your ceiling caves in and you need to rebuild half your house? That's essentially what we're talking about with Alzheimer's disease. The earlier we detect it, the more options we have. And speaking of options, here's something really important. We now have medications that can help slow down Alzheimer's progression, but they only work in the early stages of the disease. The FDA has approved 2 drugs, Leqembi and Kisunla, that can modestly slow cognitive decline. But here's the catch. Doctors can only prescribe these medications if they can confirm you have amyloid plaques in your brain. It's like having a really good umbrella, but you can only use it if you know it's going to rain. This blood test is like having an accurate weather forecast. Now, I want to be clear about something. These medications aren't cures. They're more like good walking shoes for a long hike. They won't change your destination, but they can make the journey easier and help you maintain your footing longer. But there's another huge advantage to early detection that goes beyond medication. When you know what you're dealing with early on, you can plan. You can have conversations with your family while you're still fully able to express your wishes. You can make financial and legal arrangements. You can choose how you want to live your life moving forward. One of our viewers, Margaret from Ohio, told me recently that the worst part of her husband's Alzheimer's journey wasn't the diagnosis itself. It was the 2 years of uncertainty beforehand, the not knowing, the second-guessing every forgotten name or misplaced key. Now, let's talk about who should consider getting this test, because this is where some important nuances come in. First, the FDA has approved this test for adults 55 and older who are already showing signs and symptoms of cognitive decline. This isn't a test for everyone who's worried about their memory. It's specifically for people who have noticed changes that concern them or their families. What I mean by signs and symptoms? Think about things like forgetting important dates or events repeatedly, asking for the same information over and over, having trouble completing familiar tasks at home or work, getting confused about time or place, having trouble understanding visual images or spatial relationships, problems with words in speaking or writing, misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps, decreased or poor judgment, changes in mood, or personality. Now, here's something crucial to understand. This test is not a crystal ball. It doesn't predict who will develop Alzheimer's in the future. It's designed for people who are already experiencing symptoms and need help understanding what's causing those symptoms. Think of it like this. If you're having chest pain, an EKG can help determine if you're having a heart attack. But you wouldn't get an EKG every month just to see if you might have a heart attack someday. Same principle applies here. The test is also specifically intended for use in specialized care settings. This means your family doctor might order it, but they'll likely consult with a neurologist or geriatrician to interpret the results properly. And here's something really important that the Alzheimer's Association emphasizes. Nearly 4 out of 5 Americans say they want to know if they had Alzheimer's disease before it significantly impacted their lives. But wanting to know and being ready to know are two different things. This is a conversation you should have with your family and your healthcare team. Let's talk about what happens when you get your test results back, because understanding what they mean is just as important as getting the test in the first place. Remember, this test gives you a ratio, a number that tells your doctor how likely it is that you have amyloid plaques in your brain. It's not like a pregnancy test that's simply positive or negative. If your result shows a high ratio, it means there's more than a 90% chance that you have these amyloid plaques. That's pretty definitive. Like a weather forecast saying there's a 90% chance of rain. You'll probably get wet, so you better bring an umbrella. If your result shows a low ratio, it means you almost certainly don't have significant amyloid buildup. That's like a forecast saying there's only a 5% chance of rain. You can probably leave the umbrella at home. But here's where it gets interesting. About 20% of people will fall into what doctors call the intermediate zone. Your ratio isn't high enough to be certain, but it's not low enough to rule out Alzheimer's either. In these cases, your doctor might recommend additional testing, perhaps that PET scan or spinal tap we talked about earlier. Think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to determine if someone is tall enough to ride a roller coaster. If they're clearly over the height requirement, great. If they're clearly under, that's definitive too. But if they're right on the borderline, you might need to have them stand up straighter or use a more precise measuring tool. It's also crucial to understand that this test doesn't tell you what stage of Alzheimer's you might be in or how quickly the disease might progress. Those are separate questions that require different assessments. So, what happens if your test results suggest you do have amyloid plaques? First, take a deep breath. Having amyloid plaques doesn't automatically mean you have or will develop severe Alzheimer's symptoms right away. Your doctor will want to do a comprehensive evaluation that might include detailed cognitive testing, review of your medical history, physical and neurological exams, sometimes additional blood tests or brain imaging. If you're diagnosed with early-stage Alzheimer's, you and your doctor can discuss treatment options. This might include those medications I mentioned earlier, but it will definitely include lifestyle approaches that we know can help. Regular exercise, a healthy diet, particularly the Mediterranean diet, staying socially engaged, managing other health conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure, and continuing to challenge your brain with learning and activities. Here's something that might surprise you. Many people with early Alzheimer's continue to live fulfilling, active lives for years. Early detection gives you the chance to be proactive rather than reactive. And if your test results suggest you don't have significant amyloid buildup, that's valuable information too. It means your memory concerns might be due to other treatable causes. Things like vitamin deficiencies, thyroid problems, medication side effects, depression, or just normal aging. It's like finally solving a mystery that's been bothering you. Either way, you have answers, and answers give you power to make informed decisions. As we wrap up today's discussion, I want to leave you with some thoughts about what this breakthrough means for all of us. This blood test is just the beginning. Researchers are already working on tests that can detect other markers of Alzheimer's, including tau tangles, which appear later in the disease process. In the future, we might have a whole panel of blood tests that can not only detect Alzheimer's early, but also track its progression and even predict how quickly it might advance. Dr. Abhay Mogakar from Johns Hopkins, who helped develop this test, says their ultimate goal isn't to treat Alzheimer's once you have it. It's to prevent it altogether. Imagine that. A future where Alzheimer's becomes as preventable as polio or measles. But even today, right now, this test represents something profound. Hope. Hope for earlier answers. Hope for better treatment options. Hope for families who no longer have to wonder and worry in silence. If you're concerned about memory changes in yourself or a loved one, talk to your doctor about whether this test might be appropriate. Don't suffer in silence, and don't let fear prevent you from seeking answers. Remember, knowledge is power, and early detection is hope. Thank you for joining me today on this journey through this remarkable medical breakthrough. If this video was helpful to you, please give a thumbs up and share it with someone who might benefit from this information. And as always, keep embracing the wisdom that comes with every stage of life. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.